Hello and welcome to this week's IG Live. Today we are going to be talking to author Christina Matula, and she has a number of books, including a picture book and also the middle grade series. You can see I have one of them behind me. It's the Holly-Mei series, and she has a new one that's coming out very soon. So we're going to talk to her about that. Also wanted to make sure you knew that our April 15th. So if you haven't checked it out, go to the link in our bio. You can see we have all kinds of things there that you can bid on. Of course, lots and lots of books, but also author visits. Hello.
Hi, Leah.
And other things like toys and artwork and all of that. You guys can go, which helps us keep going and presenting to you these programs like we have today. Christina, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and thank you especially. I don't know if everybody's aware that you're joining us evening your time, so I appreciate you being so flexible and making it work.
No. Totally my pleasure. Thank you.
Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us, what was your journey to becoming an author? Is that something you always wanted to do?
No, that's actually something I got into quite late. I am Canadian. I am mixed Taiwanese Hungarian. And I grew up born and raised in Canada, in Ottawa. And I now live in Finland, and I'm married to a Finn, so I live here now. So my journey was I guess, kind of roundabout. Immigrant parents. I don't know if it's to generalize, but it was very much like study something useful, study science. So I studied science. They're like, you'll get a job and it'll be like, safe and secure. And maybe that's something that immigrants of that generation, they wanted that for their kids. They wanted security and everything. So I studied science, and it wasn't until I became a mom, and I was living in Hong Kong at the time. I had moved there with a newborn. And my husband, and we moved there, and it was supposed to only be for a few months, but we ended up staying almost 14 years. And that's when I discovered the power of books, power of reading. And I was volunteering with a literacy charity that gave books to underserved communities. So, there was a lot of data to show that books can change lives, you can transcend, socioeconomic barriers through love of reading and books and libraries. And so I was just surrounding myself with books, and at the same time, sorry, this is a really long story.
But this is fascinating.
At the same time, because I'm half Taiwanese, but, mixed, and we can talk about that later. I know book 3 is a bit about that, but, I always felt like a little piece of me was missing in terms of, not in a negative way, but just sort of like I was searching for something. And when I moved to Hong Kong, it's amazing. I was all of a sudden in a place where people looked like me or my extended family, and there were mixes my age, because, being of my age, my mom was the only one that married outside of the Taiwanese community. And so we didn't have any cousins or friends that were mixed. So for me to see adults who are mixed like me, and we could communicate and talk about the ups and downs, and it was just really eye-opening. And I also, because I was a stay-at-home mom at the time, I was able to take language lessons at the local university, and I chose Mandarin just because of my background. And when you learn a new language, you're immersed not only in the language, but also in the literature and the folk tales and the festivals. And it was something that I became really passionate about. And when I discovered that, we're in my daughter's kindergarten class, and the teacher was reading them a story in Chinese about the Mid-Autumn Festival, the legend of Chang'e and Hou-Yi. And I was like, wow, that's a fantastic story. I'm going to run to the bookstore and buy like a version of this legend in English. And I didn't find one. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to write it myself. So I did a lot of drafts and a lot of like online courses and mentorships. And then I had my first book, The Shadow and the Moon. So it actually was self-published. I found a local illustrator, Pearl Law, who was amazing, and it was only going to be for friends and family. And then, so that was done, and then I found an agent, and she found a publisher in the U.S., Charlesbridge, and they rejigged it a bit, edited my writing. It's always nice to have a professional editor, actually. We have some new illustrations and sort of broadened story, and then it came out, and so that's the version that is out now. So it's my baby, and so that's how I got started. So from a science degree and parents who did not encourage the arts to becoming a parent myself and realizing the power of books and storytelling and wanting to share my culture.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, it seems like there's so many different pieces that kind of fit together to make it the perfect time for you to start writing. And so, as you said, you started with a picture book when your daughter was in around that age. And now I think most people know you also for your middle grade series, the Holly-Mei series. What was the inspiration behind, well, the inspiration behind the story, but also what made you decide to branch out into middle grade?
So I guess to start with branching to middle grade was I actually had tried to write more picture books. And I have to say that, you know, I came about the first one and the first book deal and publication quite easily. So I was like, oh, I can do this. But then slowly I realized that actually my writing is, I'm not a poet. I think the people who write picture books well have this sort of gift with words that I realized I don't have. And my stories were always like too long or too much inside the word count. And my points were, they weren't poetic enough, I think, to be picture books. And so my agent suggested I try middle grade. And at first I was like, oh my God, this is like 50,000 words. There's no way I can write that. But then I was like, you know what? I love Hong Kong. I love where I live. This place is magical. And it's nothing I would have expected. And I wanted to share that. So, and I wanted to show that, that, you know, I guess kids and people, even myself, I had a preconception about Hong Kong, that it would be like concrete and busy and like honking horns. But actually, it's such a beautiful place, and it's got lush green hills and hiking trails and country parks and beaches. And it can be very calm and really beautiful and a wonderful place to live. So I kind of wanted to show that world to people who may not have a chance to visit, and also show what it's like to be Asian through a lens that's kind of like happy, you know, happy in my own skin. The kids who are in Hong Kong, they don't face the same issues, and like in North America, there are so many amazing books out there about immigrants who have sort of who face, you know, some harsh things when they come, or crises of identity. But I felt like my childhood was quite happy, and the kids I saw in Hong Kong were happy. Like, I just wanted to show it. There are stories of happy Asians as well, and they're just like regular kids. They have the ups and downs with friendship drama and, like, you know, peer pressure. That has nothing to do with them being Asian. They're universal stories. So.
Yeah, which is something that I want to talk about a little bit more in a minute. But first, maybe you can tell us about the new book that's coming out, The Not So Simple Question. So congratulations on that. I know that's
Thank you.
In maybe another week or 2 weeks it's coming out.
This is the first Holly-Mei. So this is her moving from Canada to Hong Kong when her mom gets a new job. And then this is the book to the Not So Perfect Plan when, and she's, you know, has friendship ups and downs, and it's more about her friendships and her competitive nature. A lot of field hockey. I love field hockey, so I put that in there. But this one, I just got this copy yesterday. I'm so excited. So this one, The Not So Simple Question, is more personal for me. It was actually probably the hardest of them to write. And it's about Holly-Mei going, if you can see, I don't know if anyone knows the building here. This is Taipei 101. So that's in Taipei. It used to be the tallest building in the world for probably a few months until they built something bigger in Dubai. But she is going on an experience week with her school. So in Hong Kong, a lot of schools have this thing called Experience Week, and you go usually somewhere else in Asia and you do sort of a cultural trip or a service trip, and you learn about other cultures in the area. And so she decides to go to Taiwan for her trip. And there's a girl in her class, also Taiwanese, full Taiwanese, and she asked the question, and it sounds simple and it sounds innocuous, but she asked, "Oh, so you're only half?" And so with that, Holly-Mei is, and I don't want to say she has an identity crisis because it's much less than that. It's more like she's always been happy and proud of her mixed heritage, but all of a sudden she's like, "Oh, like I don't speak it. I wasn't born there. I've never lived there. Can I call myself Taiwanese? Like, am I allowed to do that? What does it mean to be Taiwanese, or, you know, to straddle two backgrounds?" And so for me, that was quite personal. And I wanted to show her journey, how she does that.
That's so interesting. Especially I'm thinking generationally wise, I think now there are so many more mixed kids, or at least, or maybe it's more prominent, or I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's just more visible, or if it is also just more common. So I love that she's exploring this, and like, what does that mean, and maybe having a little bit of imposter. I don't know if I can apply the term here. Like, can I call myself Taiwanese? What does this mean? And you know, so why is it important to you to have this kind of representation in children's books? I mean, I don't know about you, but at least when I was growing up, I can't remember any mixed kids in books that we were reading. Why is it important to have that kind of representation?
I want kids like also to be able to see themselves, you know, like you said, now, like at the time, it was my sister and I were the only mixes in the family, extended family, in the community. But now a lot of my cousins have married outside the community, and so they have mixed kids who are now, you know, young adults, so, or teenagers. And I wanted kids to be able to see themselves, and I also wanted other people who weren't mixed to understand that being mixed is it's very rich, and it's a wonderful, it's just wonderful. And also I want kids who, particularly kids who are mixed or come from different heritages, or maybe it's their grandparents or something. Everyone's sort of a mix of something, but that it's okay to feel these doubts. There's nothing wrong with you if you're feeling these doubts, that it's okay to take the time to figure yourself out and not to fit in someone else's box of what they think you should be. Like, oh, well, you know, you didn't do this. Like growing up, you know, my cousins, like, you know, my mom would like to tell me how my cousins were at like Ivy League schools, and they like were concert pianists and math wizards, and I was like, oh, my sister and I were like, oh, we don't really fit into this. And but yeah, you don't let anyone define you. And in the book, she's got two mixed friends. One is Ghanaian and white, and the other one is Scottish and Chinese. And so they both tell her, and you know, because these kids come across as very with it, super confident. And so Holly-Mei is like, oh, well, they must have the answers. And they tell her, like, no, we do sometimes feel different, but it's okay. It's like unique, different, but like that's just, it's what we feel in our heart, that what matters. And her mom tells her, you know, don't let others define your identity. It's like, so, you know, and I think that identity now is not just about your heritage. It could be about what you want to do or what you want to be, and who you want to be with. And yeah, I just think it's really personal, and don't feel pressured by the labels that other people might want to give you.
I love that, and it's such a great message, like you said, for kids that are reading it who are mixed heritage, or who, you know, this age is such a time when they're starting to think about who they are and where does that identity come from, and so many different parts of their lives. And something I thought was interesting is that, like you said, in a lot of ways, Holly-Mei is just a regular kid who's going through friendship drama, or dealing with being in a new culture. You know, she has a lot of the same dilemmas and insecurities of the kids this age. And then there's the added layer of her mixed heritage and of living in a new culture. So how did those kind of two threads interact each other or influence each other in your books?
I thought the fact that she's in a new country, because I think the theme of having to move or fish out of water is quite universal. It could be like you move to schools in a new neighborhood, or it could be a city or a country. And I thought the fact that it was set in Hong Kong, which was so foreign, like different than most people's everyday lives who are not in there, or who are not in some sort of like expat enclave of a big city, that it was almost like an adventure story, and I felt like it allowed me to have more of a positive bent, because the kids were, or the readers are exploring these places along with Holly-Mei. They're exploring Hong Kong, and in book 3 they're exploring different parts of Taiwan, and yeah, it's sort of like adventure with hopefully a message that they can take, a positive message.
Yeah, what do you hope that readers take away from the book, from your books?
That book in particular, or just
either, however you'd like to, either the new book or just in general with the series.
I hope it opens their readers, those who are of Asian heritage, that they're like happy to see someone who looks like them, who is just being themselves and being a regular kid. And for those who are not of Asian heritage, that they're like, wow, like these kids are just like me. They have the same like dreams and aspirations and problems, and what they face is universal. And even though our households may be different or our geography might be different, actually we are very similar.
Do you
So
ever
kinder
think
to each other.
do you ever think that you do a book set in Finland?
Well, I do have an idea for something that I'm hoping might work out. So I can't say anything more, but we'll see. We'll see.
I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the process of writing. You've already touched on this some, about picture books versus writing middle grade books. Do you think that you're going to stick with the middle grade? Do you think you ever might go back to writing some picture books, or
Well,
maybe try YA or
one coming out?
Yes.
A picture book coming out in September. I co-wrote it with my Scooby friend from Hong Kong, Erica Lyons, and it's a multicultural book. It's a picture book called Mixed Up Mooncakes, and it's about Ruby, who is mixed Taiwanese or mixed Chinese. I don't specify. I can't remember if I do. Maybe I think mixed Chinese and Jewish. So she has a Jewish mom and a Chinese dad, and it's sort of a celebration of fall festivals, because there is Mid-Autumn Festival and there's also Sukkot, which actually I did not know about until Erica introduced it to me, and it happens around the same time, and because they both cultures use the lunar calendar. So it was about this girl who was trying to figure out how to bring her two sides together. And it's lovely, and it's illustrated by Tracy Subisak, who is of Ama Far Away fame and Sorry Snail, and also she's mixed Taiwanese, so I just thought it was a great choice in illustrator. And I have one other one coming out not until next spring. It's called The Beat of the Dragon Boat, and it's about a boy who is in a modern day setting who learns about the Dragon Boat Festival from his grandfather.
Oh, and that's also a picture book?
That is a picture book, and it's illustrated by Nicole Wong. And I've seen some sketches. I haven't seen, and we don't have a cover yet, but it's going to be beautiful. So I'm super excited, and that's with Sleeping Bear Press. As for YA, I think I like middle grade. I find it like a sort of a magical time where kids are sort of adventurous, but still kids. And I think for me, YA delves into sort of more difficult themes that maybe don't feel as comfortable writing about, or but
there's still a little,
but yeah, so
little bit of innocence around the middle grade.
Yeah. So yeah, I do love middle grade, and I think that's sort of where my heart is. But picture books, that's where I started, and there's so many stories sort of about festivals that I still want to tell.
Yeah.
But in terms of sort of more coming of age stories, middle grade would be where I want to be.
Well, I love it. And I mean, I love the middle grade series, and like you said, the picture books are great because, as you mentioned at the beginning, there aren't that many English language picture books about these festivals. I think they're definitely more than there used to be, but we
Yes.
need more of them. So, and I love the idea. I did see that announcement about the mixed up mooncakes. That seems so interesting, especially a mix of cultures that I think we're not quite as used to seeing. So I can't wait to see. And we'll definitely be sure to share the announcements about the others when they come out. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. This is really
Oh,
wonderful.
such a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.
And for those of you that joined us late, this will be up in a few minutes on our Instagram and later on our YouTube channel. And again, if you haven't checked out our online auction, be sure to do that. It's open until April 15th. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.